Part 5, Chapter 4, Section 1 of Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Translated by Constance Garnett. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Expatriate in Bangor, Maine. Part 5, Chapter 4, Section 1. Raskolnikov had been a vigorous and active champion of Sonia against Luzhin, although he had such a load of horror and anguish in his own heart. But having gone through so much in the morning, he found a sort of relief in a change of sensations, apart from the strong personal feeling which impelled him to defend Sonia. He was agitated too, especially at some moments, by the thought of his approaching interview with Sonia. He had to tell her who had killed Lizaveta. He knew the terrible suffering it would be to him and, as it were, brushed away the thought of it. So when he cried as he left Katerina Ivanovna's, "Well, Sofya Semyonovna, we shall see what you'll say now," he was still superficially excited, still vigorous and defiant from his triumph over Luzhin. But strange to say, by the time he reached Sonia's lodging, he felt a sudden impotence and fear. He stood still in hesitation at the door, asking himself the strange question, must he tell her who killed Lizaveta? It was a strange question, because he felt at the very time not only that he could not help telling her, but also that he could not put off the telling. He did not yet know why it must be so, he only felt it, and the agonizing sense of his impotence before the inevitable almost crushed him. To cut short his hesitation and suffering, he quickly opened the door and looked at Sonia from the doorway. She was sitting with her elbows on the table and her face in her hands, but seeing Raskolnikov she got up at once and came to meet him as though she were expecting him. "What would have become of me but for you?" she said quickly, meeting him in the middle of the room. Evidently she was in haste to say this to him. It was what she had been waiting for. Raskolnikov went to the table and sat down on the chair from which she had only just risen. She stood facing him 2 steps away, just as she had done the day before. "Well, Sonia," he said, and felt that his voice was trembling. "It was all due to your social position and the habits associated with it. Did you understand that just now?" Her face showed her distress. "Only don't talk to me as you did yesterday," she interrupted him. "Please don't begin it. There is misery enough without that." She made haste to smile, afraid that he might not like the reproach. "I was silly to come away from there. What is happening there now? I wanted to go back directly, but I kept thinking that you would come." He told her that Amalia Ivanovna was turning them out of their lodging and that Katerina Ivanovna had run off somewhere to seek justice. "My God!" cried Sonia, "let's go at once!" And she snatched up her cape. "It's everlastingly the same thing," said Raskolnikov irritably. "You've no thought except for them. Stay a little with me." "But Katerina Ivanovna?" "You won't lose Katerina Ivanovna, you may be sure. She'll come to you herself since she has run out," he added peevishly. "If she doesn't find you here, you'll be blamed for it." Sonia sat down in painful suspense. Raskolnikov was silent, gazing at the floor and deliberating. "This time Luzhin did not want to prosecute you," he began, not looking at Sonia. "But if he had wanted to, if it had suited his plans, he would have sent you to prison if it had not been for Lebeziatnikov and me. Ah?" "Yes," she assented in a faint voice. "Yes," she repeated, preoccupied and distressed. "But I might easily not have been there. And it was quite an accident, Lebeziatnikov's turning up." Sonia was silent. "And if you'd gone to prison, what then? Do you remember what I said yesterday?" Again she did not answer. He waited. "I thought you would cry out again, 'Don't speak of it, leave off.'" Raskolnikov gave a laugh, but rather a forced one. "What, silence again?" he asked a minute later. "We must talk about something, you know. It would be interesting for me to know how you would decide a certain 'problem,' as Lebeziatnikov would say." He was beginning to lose the thread. "No, really, I am serious. Imagine, Sonia, that you had known all Luzhin's intentions beforehand. Known, that is, for a fact, that they would be the ruin of Katerina Ivanovna and the children and yourself thrown in, since you don't count yourself for anything. Polenka too, for she'll go the same way. Well, if suddenly it all depended on your decision whether he or they should go on living, that is, whether Luzhin should go on living and doing wicked things, or Katerina Ivanovna should die. How would you decide which of them was to die? I ask you." Sonia looked uneasily at him. There was something peculiar in this hesitating question, which seemed approaching something in a roundabout way. "I felt that you were going to ask some question like that," she said, looking inquisitively at him. "I dare say you did, but how is it to be answered?" "Why do you ask about what could not happen?" said Sonia reluctantly. "Then it would be better for Luzhin to go on living and doing wicked things? You haven't dared to decide even that." "But I can't know the divine providence. And why do you ask what can't be answered? What's the use of such foolish questions? How could it happen that it should depend on my decision? Who has made me a judge to decide who is to live and who is not to live?" "Oh, if the divine providence is to be mixed up in it, there's no doing anything," Raskolnikov grumbled morosely. "You'd better say straight out what you want," Sonia cried in distress. "You are leading up to something again. Can you have come simply to torture me?" She could not control herself and began crying bitterly. He looked at her in gloomy misery. 5 minutes passed. "Of course, you're right, Sonia," he said softly at last. He was suddenly changed. His tone of assumed arrogance and helpless defiance was gone. Even his voice was suddenly weak. "I told you yesterday that I was not coming to ask forgiveness, and almost the first thing I've said is to ask forgiveness. I said that about Luzhin and Providence for my own sake. I was asking forgiveness, Sonia." He tried to smile, but there was something helpless and incomplete in his pale smile. He bowed his head and hid his face in his hands. And suddenly a strange, surprising sensation of a sort of bitter hatred for Sonia passed through his heart. As it were wondering and frightened of this sensation, he raised his head and looked intently at her. But he met her uneasy and painfully anxious eyes fixed on him. There was love in them; his hatred vanished like a phantom. It was not the real feeling; he had taken the one feeling for the other. It only meant that that minute had come. He hid his face in his hands again and bowed his head. Suddenly he turned pale, got up from his chair, looked at Sonia and without uttering a word sat down mechanically on her bed. His sensations that moment were terribly like the moment when he had stood over the old woman with the axe in his hand, and felt that he must not lose another minute. "What's the matter?" asked Sonia, dreadfully frightened. He could not utter a word. This was not at all the way he had intended to tell, and he did not understand what was happening to him now. She went up to him softly, sat down on the bed beside him and waited, not taking her eyes off him. Her heart throbbed and sank. It was unendurable. He turned his deadly pale face to her. His lips worked, helplessly struggling to utter something. A pang of terror passed through Sonia's heart. "What's the matter?" she repeated, drawing a little away from him. "Nothing, Sonia, don't be frightened, it's nonsense. It really is nonsense if you think of it," he muttered like a man in delirium. "Why have I come to torture you?" he added suddenly, looking at her. "Why, really? I keep asking myself that question, Sonia." He had perhaps been asking himself that question a quarter of an hour before, but now he spoke helplessly, hardly knowing what he said and feeling a continual tremor all over. "Oh, how you are suffering!" she muttered in distress, looking intently at him. "It's all nonsense. Listen, Sonia," he suddenly smiled, a pale, helpless smile for 2 seconds. "You remember what I meant to tell you yesterday?" Sonia waited uneasily. "I said as I went away that perhaps I was saying good bye for ever, but that if I came to day, I would tell you who killed Lizaveta." She began trembling all over. "Well, here I've come to tell you." "Then you really meant it yesterday?" she whispered with difficulty. "How do you know?" she asked quickly, as though suddenly regaining her reason. Sonia's face grew paler and paler and she breathed painfully. "I know." She paused a minute. "Have they found him?" she asked timidly. "No." "Then how do you know about it?" she asked again, hardly audibly and again after a minute's pause. He turned to her and looked very intently at her. "Guess," he said, with the same distorted helpless smile. A shudder passed over her. "But you... why do you frighten me like this?" she said, smiling like a child. "I must be a great friend of his, since I know," Raskolnikov went on, still gazing into her face, as though he could not turn his eyes away. "He did not mean to kill that Lizaveta. He killed her accidentally. He meant to kill the old woman when she was alone and he went there, and then Lizaveta came in. He killed her too." Another awful moment passed. Both still gazed at one another. "You can't guess then?" he asked suddenly, feeling as though he were flinging himself down from a steeple. "No," whispered Sonia. "Take a good look." As soon as he had said this again, the same familiar sensation froze his heart. He looked at her, and all at once seemed to see in her face the face of Lizaveta. He remembered clearly the expression in Lizaveta's face when he approached her with the axe and she stepped back to the wall, putting out her hand with childish terror in her face, looking as little children do when they begin to be frightened of something, looking intently and uneasily at what frightens them, shrinking back and holding out their little hands on the point of crying. Almost the same thing happened now to Sonia. With the same helplessness and the same terror, she looked at him for a while and suddenly putting out her left hand, pressed her fingers faintly against his breast, and slowly began to get up from the bed, moving further from him and keeping her eyes fixed even more immovably on him. Her terror infected him. The same fear showed itself on his face. In the same way he stared at her and almost with the same childish smile. "Have you guessed?" he whispered at last. "Good God!" broke in an awful wail from her bosom. She sank helplessly on the bed with her face in the pillows, but a moment later she got up, moved quickly to him, seized both his hands and, gripping them tight in her thin fingers, began looking into his face again with the same intent stare. In this last desperate look she tried to look into him and catch some last hope. But there was no hope, there was no doubt remaining, it was all true. Later on, indeed, when she recalled that moment, she thought it strange, and wondered why she had seen at once that there was no doubt. She could not have said, for instance, that she had foreseen something of the sort, and yet now, as soon as he told her, she suddenly fancied that she had really foreseen this very thing. "Stop, Sonia, enough! Don't torture me," he begged her miserably. It was not at all like this he had thought of telling her, but this is how it happened. She jumped up, seeming not to know what she was doing, and wringing her hands, walked into the middle of the room, but quickly went back and sat down again beside him, her shoulder almost touching his. All of a sudden she started as though she had been stabbed, uttered a cry and fell on her knees before him, she did not know why. "What have you done? What have you done to yourself?" she said in despair, and jumping up she flung herself on his neck, threw her arms round him and held him tightly. Raskolnikov drew back and looked at her with a mournful smile. "You are a strange girl, Sonia. You kiss me and hug me when I tell you about that. You don't think what you are doing." "There is no one in the whole world now so unhappy as you," she cried in a frenzy, not hearing what he said, and she suddenly broke into violent hysterical weeping. A feeling long unfamiliar to him flooded his heart and softened it at once. He did not struggle against it. Two tears started into his eyes and hung on his eyelashes. "Then you won't leave me, Sonia?" he said, looking at her almost with hope. "No, no, never, nowhere!" cried Sonia. "I will follow you. I will follow you everywhere. Oh, my God! Oh, how miserable I am! Why didn't I know you before? Why didn't you come before? Oh, dear!" "Here I have come." "Yes, now. What's to be done now? Together, together," she repeated, as it were unconsciously, and she hugged him again. "I'll follow you to Siberia." He recoiled at this, and the same hostile, almost haughty smile came to his lips. "Perhaps I don't want to go to Siberia yet, Sonia," he said. Sonia looked at him quickly. Again, after her first passionate, agonising sympathy for the unhappy man, the terrible idea of the murder overwhelmed her. In his changed tone she seemed to hear the murderer speaking. She looked at him bewildered. She knew nothing as yet, why, how, with what object it had been. Now all these questions rushed at once into her mind and again she could not believe it. He is a murderer? Could it be true? "What's the meaning of it? Where am I?" she said in complete bewilderment, as though still unable to recover herself. "How could you? You, a man like you! How could you bring yourself to it? What does it mean?" "Oh, well, to plunder. Leave off, Sonia," he answered wearily, almost with vexation. Sonia stood as though struck dumb, but suddenly she cried: "You were hungry? It was... to help your mother? Yes?" "No, Sonia, no," he muttered, turning away and hanging his head. "I was not so hungry. I certainly did want to help my mother, but that's not the real thing either. Don't torture me, Sonia." Sonia clasped her hands. Could it all be true? Good God, what a truth! Who could believe it? And how could you give away your last farthing and yet rob and murder? Ah!" she cried suddenly. "That money you gave Katerina Ivanovna, that money! Can that money..." "No, Sonia," he broke in hurriedly, "that money was not it. Don't worry yourself. That money my mother sent me and it came when I was ill, the day I gave it to you. Razumihin saw it, he received it for me. That money was mine, my own." Sonia listened to him in bewilderment and did her utmost to comprehend. "And that money... I don't even know really whether there was any money," he added softly, as though reflecting. "I took a purse off her neck, made of chamois leather, a purse stuffed full of something. But I didn't look in it, I suppose I hadn't time. And the things, chains and trinkets, I buried under a stone with the purse, next morning, in a yard off the V Prospect. They are all there now." Sonia strained every nerve to listen. "Then why you said you did it to rob, but you took nothing?" she asked quickly, catching at a straw. "I don't know. I haven't yet decided whether to take that money or not," he said, musing again, and seeming to wake up with a start, he gave a brief ironical smile. "Ach, what silly stuff I am talking, eh?" The thought flashed through Sonia's mind: wasn't he mad? But she dismissed it at once. No, it was something else. She could make nothing of it, nothing. "Do you know, Sonia," he said suddenly with conviction, "let me tell you, if I'd simply killed because I was hungry," laying stress on every word and looking enigmatically but sincerely at her, "I should be happy now. You must believe that. What would it matter to you," he cried a moment later with a sort of despair, "what would it matter to you if I were to confess that I did wrong? What do you gain by such a stupid triumph over me? Ah, Sonia, was it for that I've come to you to day?" Again Sonia tried to say something but did not speak. End of Part 5, Chapter 4, Section 1. Recording by Expatriate in Bangor, Maine. Part 4, Chapter 4, Section 2. Of Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Translated by Constance Garnett. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Expatriate in Bangor, Maine. Part 5, Chapter 4, Section 2. Again Sonia tried to say something, but did not speak. "I asked you to go with me yesterday because you are all I have left." "Go where?" asked Sonia timidly. "Not to steal and not to murder, don't be anxious," he smiled bitterly. "We are so different. And you know, Sonia, it's only now, only this moment that I understand where I asked you to go with me yesterday. Yesterday when I said it, I did not know where. I asked you for one thing, I came to you for one thing, not to leave me. You won't leave me, Sonia?" She squeezed his hand. "And why? Why did I tell her? Why did I let her know?" he cried a minute later in despair, looking with infinite anguish at her. "Here you expect an explanation from me, Sonia. You are sitting and waiting for it, I see that. But what can I tell you? You won't understand and will only suffer misery on my account. Well, you are crying and embracing me again. Why do you do it? Because I couldn't bear my burden and have come to throw it on another. You suffer too, and I shall feel better. And can you love such a mean wretch?" "But aren't you suffering too?" cried Sonia. Again a wave of the same feeling surged into his heart and again for an instant softened it. "Sonia, I have a bad heart, take note of that. It may explain a great deal. I have come because I am bad. There are men who wouldn't have come, but I am a coward and a mean wretch. But never mind, that's not the point. I must speak now, but I don't know how to begin." He paused and sank into thought. "Ah, we are so different!" he cried again. "We are not alike. And why did I come? I shall never forgive myself that." "No, no, it was a good thing you came," cried Sonia. "It's better I should know, far better." He looked at her with anguish. "What if it were really that?" he said, as though reaching a conclusion. "Yes, that's what it was. I wanted to become a Napoleon, that is why I killed her. Do you understand now?" No," Sonia whispered naively and timidly. "Only speak, speak, I shall understand, I shall understand in myself," she kept begging him. "You'll understand? Very well, we shall see." He paused and was for some time lost in meditation. "It was like this. I asked myself one day this question: what if Napoleon, for instance, had happened to be in my place, and if he had not had Toulon, nor Egypt, nor the passage of Mont Blanc to begin his career with, but instead of all those picturesque and monumental things, there had simply been some ridiculous old hag, a pawnbroker, who had to be murdered too to get money from her trunk, for his career, you understand. Well, would he have brought himself to that if there had been no other means? Wouldn't he have felt a pang at its being so far from monumental and sinful too? Well, I must tell you that I worried myself fearfully over that question, so that I was awfully ashamed when I guessed at last, all of a sudden, somehow, that it would not have given him the least pang, that it would not even have struck him that it was not monumental, that he would not have seen that there was anything in it to pause over, and that, if he had had no other way, he would have strangled her in a minute, without thinking about it. Well, I, too, left off thinking about it, murdered her, following his example. And that's exactly how it was. Do you think it funny? Yes, Sonia, the funniest thing of all is that perhaps that's just how it was." Sonia did not think it at all funny. "You had better tell me straight out, without examples," she begged, still more timidly and scarcely audibly. He turned to her, looked sadly at her and took her hands. "You are right again, Sonia. Of course, that's all nonsense, it's almost all talk. You see, you know of course that my mother has scarcely anything. My sister happened to have a good education and was condemned to drudge as a governess. All their hopes were centred on me. I was a student, but I couldn't keep myself at the university and was forced for a time to leave it. Even if I had lingered on like that, in 10 or 12 years I might, with luck, hope to be some sort of teacher or clerk with a salary of 1,000 roubles." He repeated it as though it were a lesson. "And by that time my mother would be worn out with grief and anxiety, and I could not succeed in keeping her in comfort, while my sister... well, my sister might well have fared worse. And it's a hard thing to pass everything by, all one's life, to turn one's back upon everything, to forget one's mother and decorously accept the insults inflicted on one's sister. Why should one? When one has buried them to burden oneself with others, wife and children, and to leave them again without a farthing? So I resolved to gain possession of the old woman's money and to use it for my first years without worrying my mother, to keep myself at the university and for a little while after leaving it, and to do this all on a broad, thorough scale, so as to build up a completely new career and enter upon a new life of independence. Well, that's all. Well, of course, in killing the old woman I did wrong. Well, that's enough." He struggled to the end of his speech in exhaustion and let his head sink. "Oh, that's not it, that's not it!" Sonia cried in distress. "How could one? No, that's not right, not right." "You see yourself that it's not right, but I've spoken truly, it's the truth." "As though that could be the truth! Good God!" "I've only killed a louse, Sonia, a useless, loathsome, harmful creature." "A human being! A louse?" "I too know it wasn't a louse," he answered, looking strangely at her. "But I am talking nonsense, Sonia," he added. "I've been talking nonsense a long time. That's not it, you are right there. There were quite other causes for it. I haven't talked to anyone for so long, Sonia, my head aches dreadfully now." His eyes shone with feverish brilliance. He was almost delirious; an uneasy smile strayed on his lips. His terrible exhaustion could be seen through his excitement. Sonia saw how he was suffering; she, too, was growing dizzy, and he talked so strangely. It seemed somehow comprehensible, but yet... but how? How? Good God!" And she wrung her hands in despair. "No, Sonia, that's not it," he began again suddenly, raising his head, as though a new and sudden train of thought had struck and, as it were, roused him. "That's not it. Better, imagine yes, it's certainly better imagine that I am vain, envious, malicious, base, vindictive and well, perhaps with a tendency to insanity. Let's have it all out at once. They've talked of madness already, I noticed. I told you just now I could not keep myself at the university. But do you know that perhaps I might have done? My mother would have sent me what I needed for the fees, and I could have earned enough for clothes, boots and food, no doubt. Lessons had turned up at half a rouble. Razumihin works, but I turned sulky and wouldn't. Yes, sulkiness, that's the right word for it. I sat in my room like a spider. You've been in my den, you've seen it. And do you know, Sonia, that low ceilings in tiny rooms cramp the soul and the mind? Ah, how I hated that garret! And yet I wouldn't go out of it, I wouldn't, on purpose. I didn't go out for days together and I wouldn't work, I wouldn't even eat. I just lay there doing nothing. If Nastasya brought me anything, I ate it. If she didn't, I went all day without. I wouldn't ask on purpose, from sulkiness. At night I had no light, I lay in the dark and I wouldn't earn money for candles. I ought to have studied, but I sold my books. And the dust lies an inch thick on the notebooks on my table. I preferred lying still and thinking, and I kept thinking. And I had dreams all the time, strange dreams of all sorts, no need to describe. Only then I began to fancy that no, that's not it. Again I am telling you wrong. You see, I kept asking myself then, why am I so stupid that if others are stupid, and I know they are, yet I won't be wiser? Then I saw, Sonia, that if one waits for everyone to get wiser, it will take too long. Afterwards I understood that that would never come to pass, that men won't change and that nobody can alter it, and that it's not worth wasting effort over it. Yes, that's so. That's a law of their nature, Sonia, that's so. And I know now, Sonia, that whoever is strong in mind and spirit will have power over them. Anyone who is greatly daring is right in their eyes. He who despises most things will be a lawgiver among them, and he who dares most of all will be most in the right. So it has been till now and so it will always be. A man must be blind not to see it. Though Raskolnikov looked at Sonia as he said this, he no longer cared whether she understood or not. The fever had complete hold of him. He was in a sort of gloomy ecstasy; he certainly had been too long without talking to anyone. Sonia felt that his gloomy creed had become his faith and code. "I divined then, Sonia," he went on eagerly, "that power is only vouchsafed to the man who dares to stoop and pick it up. There is only one thing needful. One has only to dare. Then, for the first time in my life, an idea took shape in my mind which no one had ever thought of before me, no one. I saw clear as daylight how strange it is that not a single person living in this mad world has had the daring to go straight for it all and send it flying to the devil. I... I wanted to have the daring, and I killed her. I only wanted to have the daring, Sonia. That was the whole cause of it." "Oh, hush, hush!" cried Sonia, clasping her hands. "You turned away from God and God has smitten you, has given you over to the devil." "Then, Sonia, when I used to lie there in the dark and all this became clear to me, was it a temptation of the devil, eh?" "Hush, don't laugh, blasphemer! You don't understand, you don't understand! Oh, God, he won't understand!" "Hush, Sonia, I am not laughing. I know myself that it was the devil leading me. Hush, Sonia, hush!" he repeated with gloomy insistence. "I know it all, I have thought it all over and over and whispered it all over to myself, lying there in the dark. I've argued it all over with myself, every point of it, and I know it all. And how sick I was then of going over it all. I have kept wanting to forget it and make a new beginning, Sonia, and leave off thinking. And you don't suppose that I went into it headlong like a fool. I went into it like a wise man, and that was just my destruction. And you mustn't suppose that I didn't know, for instance, that if I began to question myself whether I had the right to gain power, I certainly hadn't the right, or that if I asked myself whether a human being is a louse, it proved that it wasn't so for me, though it might be for a man who would go straight to his goal without asking questions. If I worried myself all those days wondering whether Napoleon would have done it or not, I felt clearly, of course, that I wasn't Napoleon. I had to endure all the agony of that battle of ideas, Sonia, and I longed to throw it off. I wanted to murder without casuistry, to murder for my own sake, for myself alone. I didn't want to lie about it even to myself. It wasn't to help my mother I did the murder, that's nonsense. I didn't do the murder to gain wealth and power and to become a benefactor of mankind. Nonsense! I simply did it. I did the murder for myself alone, and whether I became a benefactor to others, or spent my life like a spider, catching men in my web and sucking the life out of men, I couldn't have cared at that moment. And it was not the money I wanted, Sonia, when I did it. It was not so much the money I wanted, but something else. I know it all now. Understand me. Perhaps I should never have committed a murder again. I wanted to find out something else. It was something else led me on. I wanted to find out then and quickly whether I was a louse like everybody else or a man. Whether I can step over barriers or not. Whether I dare stoop to pick up or not. Whether I am a trembling creature or whether I have the right." "To kill? Have the right to kill?" Sonia clasped her hands. "Ach, Sonia!" he cried irritably, and seemed about to make some retort, but was contemptuously silent. "Don't interrupt me, Sonia. I want to prove one thing only: that the devil led me on then and he has shown me since that I had not the right to take that path, because I am just such a louse as all the rest. He was mocking me, and here I've come to you now, welcome your guest. If I were not a louse, should I have come to you? Listen, when I went then to the old woman's, I only went to try. You may be sure of that." "And you murdered her!" "But how did I murder her? Is that how men do murders? Do men go to commit a murder as I went then? I will tell you some day how I went. Did I murder the old woman? I murdered myself, not her. I crushed myself once for all, for ever. But it was the devil that killed that old woman, not I. Enough, enough, Sonia, enough! Let me be!" he cried in a sudden spasm of agony. "Let me be!" He leaned his elbows on his knees and squeezed his head in his hands as in a vise. "What suffering!" A wail of anguish broke from Sonia. "Well, what am I to do now?" he asked, suddenly raising his head and looking at her with a face hideously distorted by despair. "What are you to do?" she cried, jumping up, and her eyes that had been full of tears suddenly began to shine. "Stand up!" She seized him by the shoulder. He got up, looking at her almost bewildered. "Go at once, this very minute. Stand at the cross‐roads. Bow down, first kiss the earth which you have defiled, and then bow down to all the world and say to all men aloud, 'I am a murderer.' Then God will send you life again. Will you go? Will you go?" she asked him, trembling all over, snatching his two hands, squeezing them tight in hers and gazing at him with eyes full of fire. He was amazed at her sudden ecstasy. "You mean Siberia, Sonia? I must give myself up?" he asked gloomily. "Suffer and expiate your sin by it. That's what you must do." "No, I am not going to them, Sonia." "But how will you go on living? What will you live for?" cried Sonia. "How is it possible now? Why, how can you talk to your mother? Oh, what will become of them now? But what am I saying? You have abandoned your mother and your sister already. He has abandoned them already. Oh, God!" she cried. "Why, he knows it all himself. How? How can he live by himself? What will become of you now?" "Don't be a child, Sonia," he said softly. "What wrong have I done them? Why should I go to them? What should I say to them? That's only a phantom. They destroy men by millions themselves and look on it as a virtue. They are knaves and scoundrels, Sonia. I am not going to them. And what should I say to them? That I murdered her, but did not dare to take the money and hid it under a stone?" he added with a bitter smile. "Why, they would laugh at me and would call me a fool for not getting it. A coward and a fool! They wouldn't understand and they don't deserve to understand. Why should I go to them? I won't. Don't be a child, Sonia." "It will be too much for you to bear, too much," she repeated, holding out her hands in despairing supplication. "Perhaps I've been unfair to myself," he observed gloomily, pondering. "Perhaps after all I am a man and not a louse, and I've been in too great a hurry to condemn myself. I'll make another fight for it." A haughty smile appeared on his lips. "What a burden to bear! And your whole life, your whole life!" "I shall get used to it," he said grimly and thoughtfully. "Listen," he began a minute later, "stop crying. It's time to talk of the facts. I've come to tell you that the police are after me, on my track." "Ah!" Sonia cried in terror. "Well, why do you cry out? You want me to go to Siberia and now you are frightened? But let me tell you, I shall not give myself up. I shall make a struggle for it and they won't do anything to me. They've no real evidence. Yesterday I was in great danger and believed I was lost. But to‐day things are going better. All the facts they know can be explained two ways, that's to say, I can turn their accusations to my credit, do you understand? And I shall, for I've learnt my lesson. But they will certainly arrest me. If it had not been for something that happened, they would have done so to‐day for certain. Perhaps even now they will arrest me to‐day. But that's no matter, Sonia. They'll let me out again, for there isn't any real proof against me, and there won't be. I give you my word for it. And they can't convict a man on what they have against me. Enough! I only tell you that you may know. I will try to manage somehow to put it to my mother and sister so that they won't be frightened. My sister's future is secure, however, now, I believe, and my mother's must be too. Well, that's all. Be careful, though. Will you come and see me in prison when I am there?" "Oh, I will, I will." They sat side by side, both mournful and dejected, as though they had been cast up by the tempest alone on some deserted shore. He looked at Sonia and felt how great was her love for him, and strange to say he felt it suddenly burdensome and painful to be so loved. Yes, it was a strange and awful sensation. On his way to see Sonia he had felt that all his hopes rested on her. He expected to be rid of at least part of his suffering, and now, when all her heart turned towards him, he suddenly felt that he was immeasurably unhappier than before. "Sonia," he said, "you'd better not come and see me when I am in prison." Sonia did not answer, she was crying. Several minutes passed. "Have you a cross on you?" she asked, as though suddenly thinking of it. He did not at first understand the question. "No, of course not. Here, take this one, of cypress wood. I have another, a copper one that belonged to Lizaveta. I changed with Lizaveta; she gave me her cross and I gave her my little ikon. I will wear Lizaveta's now and give you this. Take it, it's mine, you know," she begged him. "We will go to suffer together, and together we will bear our cross." "Give it me," said Raskolnikov. He did not want to hurt her feelings, but immediately he drew back the hand he held out for the cross. "Not now, Sonia. Better later," he added to comfort her. "Yes, yes, better," she repeated with conviction. "When you go to meet your suffering, then put it on. You will come to me, I'll put it on you. We will pray and go together." At that moment someone knocked 3 times at the door. "Sofya Semyonovna, may I come in?" they heard in a very familiar and polite voice. Sonia rushed to the door in a fright. The flaxen head of Mr. Lebeziatnikov appeared at the door. End of Part 5, Chapter 4. Recording by Expatriate in Bangor, Maine. Part 5, Chapter 5. Of Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Translated by Constance Garnett. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Expatriate in Bangor, Maine. Part 5, Chapter 5. Lebeziatnikov looked perturbed. "I've come to you, Sofya Semyonovna," he began. "Excuse me, I thought I should find you," he said, addressing Raskolnikov suddenly. "That is, I didn't mean anything of that sort, but I just thought... Katerina Ivanovna has gone out of her mind," he blurted out suddenly, turning from Raskolnikov to Sonia. Sonia screamed. "At least it seems so. But we don't know what to do, you see. She came back. She seems to have been turned out somewhere, perhaps beaten. So it seems at least... She had run to your father's former chief, she didn't find him at home. He was dining at some other general's. Only fancy, she rushed off there to the other general's, and imagine, she was so persistent that she managed to get the chief to see her, had him fetched out from dinner, it seems. You can imagine what happened. She was turned out, of course, but according to her own story, she abused him and threw something at him. One may well believe it. How it is she wasn't taken up I can't understand. Now she is telling everyone, including Amalia Ivanovna, but it's difficult to understand her. She is screaming and flinging herself about. Oh yes, she shouts that since everyone has abandoned her, she will take the children and go into the street with a barrel organ, and the children will sing and dance, and she too, and collect money, and will go every day under the general's window, to let everyone see well-born children whose father was an official begging in the street. She keeps beating the children and they are all crying. She is teaching Lida to sing My Village, the boy to dance, Polenka the same. She is tearing up all the clothes and making them little caps like actors. She means to carry a tin basin and make it tinkle instead of music. She won't listen to anything. Imagine the state of things, it's beyond anything." Lebeziatnikov would have gone on, but Sonia, who had heard him almost breathless, snatched up her cloak and hat and ran out of the room, putting on her things as she went. Raskolnikov followed her and Lebeziatnikov came after him. "She has certainly gone mad," he said to Raskolnikov as they went out into the street. "I didn't want to frighten Sofya Semyonovna, so I said 'it seemed like it,' but there isn't a doubt of it. They say that in consumption the tubercles sometimes occur in the brain. It's a pity I know nothing of medicine. I did try to persuade her, but she wouldn't listen." "Did you talk to her about the tubercles?" Not precisely of the tubercles, besides she wouldn't have understood, but what I say is that if you can convince a person logically that he has nothing to cry about, he'll stop crying, that's clear. Is it your conviction that he won't?" "Life would be too easy if it were so," answered Raskolnikov. Excuse me. Of course it would be rather difficult for Katerina Ivanovna to understand, but do you know that in Paris they have been conducting serious experiments as to the possibility of curing the insane simply by logical argument? One professor there, a scientific man of standing, lately dead, believed in the possibility of such treatment. His idea was that there's nothing really wrong with the physical organism of the insane, and that insanity is, so to say, a logical mistake, an error of judgment, an incorrect view of things. He gradually showed the madman his error and, would you believe it, they say he was successful. But as he made use of douches too, how far success was due to that treatment remains uncertain, so it seems at least." Raskolnikov had long ceased to listen. Reaching the house where he lived, he nodded to Lebeziatnikov and went in at the gate. Lebeziatnikov woke up with a start, looked about him and hurried on. Raskolnikov went into his little room and stood still in the middle of it. Why had he come back here? He looked at the yellow and tattered paper, at the dust, at his sofa. From the yard came a loud continuous knocking, someone seemed to be hammering. He went to the window, rose on tiptoe and looked out into the yard for a long time with an air of absorbed attention. But the yard was empty and he could not see who was hammering. In the house on the left he saw some open windows; on the window sills were pots of sickly looking geraniums. Linen was hung out of the windows; he knew it all by heart. He turned away and sat down on the sofa. Never, never had he felt himself so fearfully alone. Yes, he felt once more that he would perhaps come to hate Sonia, now that he had made her more miserable. Why had he gone to her to beg for her tears? What need had he to poison her life? Oh, the meanness of it! "I will remain alone," he said resolutely, "and she shall not come to the prison." 5 minutes later he raised his head with a strange smile. That was a strange thought. Perhaps it really would be better in Siberia, he thought suddenly. He could not have said how long he sat there with vague thoughts surging through his mind. All at once the door opened and Dounia came in. At first she stood still and looked at him from the doorway, just as he had done at Sonia. Then she came in and sat down in the same place as yesterday, on the chair facing him. He looked silently and almost vacantly at her. "Don't be angry, brother. I've only come for 1 minute," said Dounia. Her face looked thoughtful but not stern. Her eyes were bright and soft. He saw that she, too, had come to him with love. "Brother, now I know all. Dmitri Prokofitch has explained and told me everything. They are worrying you and persecuting you through a stupid and contemptible suspicion. Dmitri Prokofitch told me that there is no danger and that you are wrong in looking upon it with such horror. I don't think so, and I fully understand how indignant you must be and that that indignation may have a permanent effect on you. That's what I am afraid of. As for your cutting yourself off from us, I don't judge you, I don't venture to judge you, and forgive me for having blamed you for it. I feel that I, too, if I had so great a trouble, should keep away from everyone. I shall tell mother nothing of this, but I shall talk about you continually, and shall tell her from you that you will come very soon. Don't worry about her. I will set her mind at rest, but don't you try her too much. Come once at least. Remember that she is your mother. And now I have come simply to say," Dounia began to get up, "that if you should need me, or should need... all my life... or anything... call me and I'll come. Good bye." She turned abruptly and went towards the door. "Dounia." Raskolnikov stopped her and went towards her. "That Razumihin, Dmitri Prokofitch, is a very good fellow." Dounia flushed slightly. "Well?" she asked, waiting a moment. "He is competent, hard working, honest and capable of real love. Good bye, Dounia." Dounia flushed crimson, then suddenly she took alarm. "But what does it mean, brother? Are we really parting for ever, that you... give me such a parting message?" "Never mind. Good bye." He turned away and walked to the window. She stood a moment, looked at him uneasily and went out troubled. No, he was not cold to her. There was an instant, the very last one, when he had longed to take her in his arms and say good bye to her, and even to tell her, but he had not dared even to touch her hand. Afterwards she may shudder when she remembers that I embraced her, and will feel that I stole her kiss. And would she stand that test?" he went on a few minutes later to himself. "No, she wouldn't. Girls like that can't stand things. They never do." And he thought of Sonia. There was a breath of fresh air from the window. The daylight was fading. He took up his cap and went out. He could not, of course, and would not consider how ill he was. But all this continual anxiety and agony of mind could not but affect him. And if he were not lying in high fever, it was perhaps just because this continual inner strain helped to keep him on his legs and in possession of his faculties. But this artificial excitement could not last long. He wandered aimlessly. The sun was setting. A special form of misery had begun to oppress him of late. There was nothing poignant, nothing acute about it, but there was a feeling of permanence, of eternity about it. It brought a foretaste of hopeless years of this cold, leaden misery, a foretaste of an eternity on a square yard of space. Towards evening this sensation usually began to weigh on him more heavily. With this idiotic, purely physical weakness, depending on the sunset or something, one can't help doing something stupid. "You'll go to Dounia as well as to Sonia," he muttered bitterly. He heard his name called. He looked round. Lebeziatnikov rushed up to him. "Only fancy, I've been to your room looking for you. Only fancy, she's carried out her plan and taken away the children. Sofya Semyonovna and I have had a job to find them. She is rapping on a frying pan and making the children dance. The children are crying. They keep stopping at the crossroads and in front of shops. There's a crowd of fools running after them. Come along!" "And Sonia?" Raskolnikov asked anxiously, hurrying after Lebeziatnikov. "Simply frantic. That is, it's not Sofya Semyonovna's frantic, but Katerina Ivanovna, though Sofya Semyonovna's frantic too. But Katerina Ivanovna is absolutely frantic. I tell you she is quite mad. They'll be taken to the police, you can fancy what an effect that will have. They are on the canal bank near the bridge now, not far from Sofya Semyonovna's, quite close." On the canal bank near the bridge, and not 2 houses away from the one where Sonia lodged, there was a crowd of people, consisting principally of gutter children. The hoarse, broken voice of Katerina Ivanovna could be heard from the bridge, and it certainly was a strange spectacle, likely to attract a street crowd. Katerina Ivanovna in her old dress with the green shawl, wearing a torn straw hat, crushed in a hideous way on one side, was really frantic. She was exhausted and breathless. Her wasted, consumptive face looked more suffering than ever, and indeed out of doors in the sunshine a consumptive always looks worse than at home. But her excitement did not flag, and every moment her irritation grew more intense. She rushed at the children, shouted at them, coaxed them, told them before the crowd how to dance and what to sing, began explaining to them why it was necessary, and driven to desperation by their not understanding, beat them. Then she would make a rush at the crowd. If she noticed any decently dressed person stopping to look, she immediately appealed to him to see what these children, from a genteel, one may say aristocratic house, had been brought to. If she heard laughter or jeering in the crowd, she would rush at once to the scoffers and begin squabbling with them. Some people laughed, others shook their heads, but everyone felt curious at the sight of the mad woman with the frightened children. The frying pan of which Lebeziatnikov had spoken was not there, at least Raskolnikov did not see it. But instead of rapping on the pan, Katerina Ivanovna began clapping her wasted hands, when she made Lida and Kolya dance and Polenka sing. She too joined in the singing, but broke down at the second note with a fearful cough, which made her curse in despair and even shed tears. What made her most furious was the weeping and terror of Kolya and Lida. Some effort had been made to dress the children up as street singers are dressed. The boy had on a turban made of something red and white to look like a Turk. There had been no costume for Lida, she simply had a red knitted cap, or rather a nightcap that had belonged to Marmeladov, decorated with a broken piece of white ostrich feather, which had been Katerina Ivanovna's grandmother's, and had been preserved as a family possession. Polenka was in her everyday dress. She looked in timid perplexity at her mother and kept at her side, hiding her tears. She dimly realised her mother's condition and looked uneasily about her. She was terribly frightened of the street and of the crowd. Sonia followed Katerina Ivanovna, weeping and beseeching her to return home, but Katerina Ivanovna was not to be persuaded. "Leave off, Sonia, leave off," she shouted, speaking fast, panting and coughing. "You don't know what you ask, you are like a child. I've told you before that I am not coming back to that drunken German. Let everyone, let all Petersburg see the children begging in the streets, though their father was an honourable man who served all his life in truth and fidelity, and one may say died in the service." Katerina Ivanovna had by now invented this fantastic story and thoroughly believed it. "Let that wretch of a general see it. And you are silly, Sonia, what have we to eat? Tell me that. We have worried you enough. I won't go on so." "Ah, Rodion Romanovitch, is that you?" she cried, seeing Raskolnikov and rushing up to him. "Explain to this silly girl, please, that nothing better could be done. Even organ grinders earn their living, and everyone will see at once that we are different, that we are an honourable and bereaved family reduced to beggary. And that general will lose his post, you'll see. We shall perform under his windows every day, and if the Tsar drives by I'll fall on my knees, put the children before me, show them to him, and say 'Defend us, father.' He is the father of the fatherless, he is merciful, he'll protect us, you'll see, and that wretch of a general. Lida, tournez-vous droite. Kolya, you'll dance again, why are you whimpering? Whimpering again? What are you afraid of, stupid? Goodness, what am I to do with them, Rodion Romanovitch? If you only knew how stupid they are! What's one to do with such children?" And she, almost crying herself, which did not stop her uninterrupted, rapid flow of talk, pointed to the crying children. Raskolnikov tried to persuade her to go home, and even said, hoping to work on her vanity, that it was unseemly for her to be wandering about the streets like an organ grinder, as she was intending to become the principal of a boarding school. "A boarding school? Ha ha ha! A castle in the air!" cried Katerina Ivanovna, her laugh ending in a cough. "No, Rodion Romanovitch, that dream is over, all have forsaken us. And that general, you know, Rodion Romanovitch, I threw an inkpot at him; it happened to be standing in the waiting room by the paper where you sign your name. I wrote my name, threw it at him and ran away. Oh, the scoundrels, the scoundrels! But enough of them, now I'll provide for the children myself, I won't bow down to anybody. She has had to bear enough for us," she pointed to Sonia. "Polenka, how much have you got? Show me. What? Only 2 farthings? Oh, the mean wretches! They give us nothing, only run after us, putting their tongues out. There, what is that blockhead laughing at?" She pointed to a man in the crowd. "It's all because Kolya here is so stupid. I have such a bother with him. What do you want, Polenka? Tell me in French, parlez-moi français. Why, I've taught you, you know some phrases. Else how are you to show that you are of good family, well brought up children, and not at all like other organ grinders? We aren't going to have a Punch and Judy show in the street, but to sing a genteel song. Ah, yes, what are we to sing? You keep putting me out, but you see, we are standing here, Rodion Romanovitch, to find something to sing and get money, something Kolya can dance to. For as you can fancy, our performance is all impromptu. We must talk it over and rehearse it all thoroughly, and then we shall go to Nevsky, where there are far more people of good society, and we shall be noticed at once. Lida knows my village only, nothing but my village, and everyone sings that. We must sing something far more genteel. Well, have you thought of anything, Polenka? If only you'd help your mother! My memory's quite gone, or I should have thought of something. We really can't sing En hussar. Ah, let us sing in French. 5 sous, I have taught it you, I have taught it you. And as it is in French, people will see at once that you are children of good family, and that will be much more touching. You might sing 'Marlborough s'en va-t-en guerre,' for that's quite a child's song and is sung as a lullaby in all the aristocratic houses. 'Marlborough s'en va-t-en guerre, ne sait quand reviendra,'" she began singing, "but no, better sing 5 sous. Now, Kolya, your hands on your hips, make haste, and you, Lida, keep turning the other way, and Polenka and I will sing and clap our hands. 5 sous, pour monter notre ménage.'" "Set your dress straight, Polenka, it slipped down on your shoulders," she observed, panting from coughing. "Now it's particularly necessary to behave nicely and genteelly, that all may see that you are well-born children. I said at the time that the bodice should be cut longer and made of 2 widths. It was your fault, Sonia, with your advice to make it shorter, and now you see the child is quite deformed by it. Why, you're all crying again. What's the matter, stupids? Come, Kolya, begin. Make haste, make haste. Oh, what an unbearable child! 5 sous, 5 sous. A policeman again! What do you want?" A policeman was indeed forcing his way through the crowd. But at that moment a gentleman in civilian uniform and an overcoat, a solid looking official of about 50 with a decoration on his neck, which delighted Katerina Ivanovna and had its effect on the policeman, approached and without a word handed her a green 3 rouble note. His face wore a look of genuine sympathy. Katerina Ivanovna took it and gave him a polite, even ceremonious bow. "I thank you, honoured sir," she began loftily. "The causes that have induced us take the money, Polenka. You see there are generous and honourable people who are ready to help a poor gentlewoman in distress. You see, honoured sir, these orphans of good family, I might even say of aristocratic connections, and that wretch of a general sat eating grouse and stamped at my disturbing him. 'Your Excellency,' I said, 'protect the orphans, for you knew my late husband, Semyon Zaharovitch, and on the very day of his death the basest of scoundrels slandered his only daughter.' That policeman again! 'Protect me!' she cried to the official. 'Why is that policeman edging up to me? We have only just run away from one of them. What do you want, fool?' 'It's forbidden in the streets. You mustn't make a disturbance.' 'It's your making a disturbance. It's just the same as if I were grinding an organ. What business is it of yours?' 'You have to get a licence for an organ, and you haven't got one, and in that way you collect a crowd. Where do you lodge?' 'What? A licence?' wailed Katerina Ivanovna. 'I buried my husband to day. What need of a licence?' 'Calm yourself, madam, calm yourself,' began the official. 'Come along, I will escort you. This is no place for you in the crowd. You are ill.' 'Honoured sir, you don't know,' screamed Katerina Ivanovna. 'We are going to the Nevsky. Sonia, Sonia, where is she? She is crying too. What's the matter with you all? Kolya, Lida, where are you going?' she cried suddenly in alarm. 'Oh, silly children! Kolya, Lida, where are they off to?' Kolya and Lida, scared out of their wits by the crowd and their mother's mad pranks, suddenly seized each other by the hand and ran off at the sight of the policeman who wanted to take them away somewhere. Weeping and wailing, poor Katerina Ivanovna ran after them. She was a piteous and unseemly spectacle as she ran, weeping and panting for breath. Sonia and Polenka rushed after them. "Bring them back! Bring them back, Sonia! Oh, stupid, ungrateful children! Polenka! Catch them, it's for your sakes I..." She stumbled as she ran and fell down. "She's cut herself, she's bleeding! Oh dear!" cried Sonia, bending over her. All ran up and crowded around. Raskolnikov and Lebeziatnikov were the first at her side. The official, too, hastened up, and behind him the policeman who muttered "Bother!" with a gesture of impatience, feeling that the job was going to be a troublesome one. Pass on," he said to the crowd that pressed forward. "She's dying!" someone shouted. "She's gone out of her mind," said another. "Lord have mercy upon us," said a woman, crossing herself. "Have they caught the little girl and the boy? They're being brought back. The elder one's got them. Ah, the naughty imps!" When they examined Katerina Ivanovna carefully, they saw that she had not cut herself against a stone, as Sonia thought, but that the blood that stained the pavement red was from her chest. "I've seen that before," muttered the official to Raskolnikov and Lebeziatnikov. "That's consumption. The blood flows and chokes the patient. I saw the same thing with a relative of my own not long ago. Nearly a pint of blood, all in a minute. What's to be done, though? She is dying." This way to my room," Sonia implored. "I live here. See, that house, the second from here. Come to me, make haste," she turned from one to the other. "Send for the doctor. Oh, dear!" Thanks to the official's efforts, this plan was adopted, the policeman even helping to carry Katerina Ivanovna. She was carried to Sonia's room, almost unconscious, and laid on the bed. The blood was still flowing, but she seemed to be coming to herself. Raskolnikov, Lebeziatnikov and the official accompanied Sonia into the room, and were followed by the policeman, who first drove back the crowd which followed to the very door. Polenka came in holding Kolya and Lida, who were trembling and weeping. Several persons came in too from the Kapernaumovs' room: the landlord, a lame one-eyed man of strange appearance with whiskers and hair that stood up like a brush, his wife, a woman with an everlastingly scared expression, and several open-mouthed children with wonder-struck faces. Among these, Svidrigaïlov suddenly made his appearance. Raskolnikov looked at him with surprise, not understanding where he had come from and not having noticed him in the crowd. A doctor and priest were spoken of. The official whispered to Raskolnikov that he thought it was too late now for the doctor, but he ordered him to be sent for. Kapernaumov ran himself. Meanwhile Katerina Ivanovna had regained her breath. The bleeding ceased for a time. She looked with sick but intent and penetrating eyes at Sonia, who stood pale and trembling, wiping the sweat from her brow with a handkerchief. At last she asked to be raised. They sat her up on the bed, supporting her on both sides. "Where are the children?" she said in a faint voice. "You brought them, Polenka? Oh, the sillies! Why did you run away? Ah!" Once more her parched lips were covered with blood. She moved her eyes, looking about her. "So that's how you live, Sonia! Never once have I been in your room." She looked at her with a face of suffering. "We have been your ruin, Sonia. Polenka, Lida, Kolya, come here. Well, here they are, Sonia, take them all. I hand them over to you, I've had enough. The ball is over. Lay me down, let me die in peace." They laid her back on the pillow. "What? The priest? I don't want him. You haven't got a rouble to spare. I have no sins. God must forgive me without that. He knows how I have suffered. And if He won't forgive me, I don't care." She sank more and more into uneasy delirium. At times she shuddered, turned her eyes from side to side, recognised everyone for a minute, but at once sank into delirium again. Her breathing was hoarse and difficult; there was a sort of rattle in her throat. "I said to him, your Excellency," she ejaculated, gasping after each word, "that Amalia Ludwigovna... Ah! Lida, Kolya, hands on your hips, make haste! Glissez, glissez! Pas de basque! Tap with your heels, be a graceful child! Du hast Diamanten und Perlen... What next? That's the thing to sing! Du hast die schönsten Augen, Mädchen, was willst du mehr? What an idea! Was willst du mehr? What things the fool invents! Ah! Yes, in the heat of midday in the vale of Dagestan. Ah, how I loved it! I loved that song to distraction, Polenka. Your father, you know, used to sing it when we were engaged. Oh, those days! Oh, that's the thing for us to sing. How does it go? I've forgotten. Remind me. How was it?" She was violently excited and tried to sit up. At last, in a horribly hoarse, broken voice, she began, shrieking and gasping at every word, with a look of growing terror. "In the heat of midday, in the vale of Dagestan, with lead in my breast." "Your Excellency," she wailed suddenly, with a heartrending scream and a flood of tears, "protect the orphans! You have been their father's guest, one may say aristocratic." She started, regaining consciousness, and gazed at all with a sort of terror, but at once recognised Sonia. "Sonia, Sonia," she articulated softly and caressingly, as though surprised to find her there. "Sonia, darling, are you here too?" They lifted her up again. "Enough! It's over! Farewell, poor thing! I am done for! I am broken!" she cried with vindictive despair, and her head fell heavily back on the pillow. She sank into unconsciousness again, but this time it did not last long. Her pale, yellow, wasted face dropped back, her mouth fell open, her leg moved convulsively, she gave a deep, deep sigh and died. Sonia fell upon her, flung her arms about her, and remained motionless with her head pressed to the dead woman's wasted bosom. Polenka threw herself at her mother's feet, kissing them and weeping violently. Though Kolya and Lida did not understand what had happened, they had a feeling that it was something terrible. They put their hands on each other's little shoulders, stared straight at one another, and both at once opened their mouths and began screaming. They were both still in their fancy dress, one in a turban, the other in the cap with the ostrich feather. "And how did the certificate of merit come to be on the bed beside Katerina Ivanovna? It lay there by the pillow. Raskolnikov saw it." He walked away to the window. Lebeziatnikov skipped up to him. "She is dead," he said. "Rodion Romanovitch, I must have 2 words with you," said Svidrigaïlov, coming up to them. Lebeziatnikov at once made room for him and delicately withdrew. Svidrigaïlov drew Raskolnikov further away. "I will undertake all the arrangements, the funeral and that. You know it's a question of money, and as I told you, I have plenty to spare. I will put those 2 little ones and Polenka into some good orphan asylum, and I will settle 1,500 roubles to be paid to each on coming of age, so that Sofya Semyonovna need have no anxiety about them. And I will pull her out of the mud, too, for she is a good girl, isn't she? So tell Avdotya Romanovna that that is how I am spending her 10,000." "What is your motive for such benevolence?" asked Raskolnikov. "Ah, you sceptical person," laughed Svidrigaïlov. "I told you I had no need of that money. Won't you admit that it's simply done from humanity? She wasn't a louse, you know. He pointed to the corner where the dead woman lay. "Was she? Like some old pawnbroker woman. Come, you'll agree, is Luzhin to go on living and doing wicked things, or is she to die? And if I didn't help them, Polenka would go the same way." He said this with an air of a sort of gay winking slyness, keeping his eyes fixed on Raskolnikov, who turned white and cold, hearing his own phrases spoken to Sonia. He quickly stepped back and looked wildly at Svidrigaïlov. "How do you know?" he whispered, hardly able to breathe. "Why, I lodge here at Madame Resslich's, the other side of the wall. Here is Kapernaumov and there lives Madame Resslich, an old and devoted friend of mine. I am a neighbour." "You?" "Yes," continued Svidrigaïlov, shaking with laughter. "I assure you on my honour, dear Rodion Romanovitch, that you have interested me enormously. I told you we should become friends, I foretold it. Well, here we have. And you will see what an accommodating person I am. You'll see that you can get on with me." End of Part 5. Recording by Expatriate in Bangor, Maine. Part 6, Chapter 1 of Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Translated by Constance Garnett. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Expatriate in Bangor, Maine. Part 6, Chapter 1. A strange period began for Raskolnikov. It was as though a fog had fallen upon him and wrapped him in a dreary solitude from which there was no escape. Recalling that period long after, he believed that his mind had been clouded at times, and that it had continued so, with intervals, till the final catastrophe. He was convinced that he had been mistaken about many things at that time, for instance as to the date of certain events. Anyway, when he tried later on to piece his recollections together, he learnt a great deal about himself from what other people told him. He had mixed up incidents, and had explained events as due to circumstances which existed only in his imagination. At times he was a prey to agonies of morbid uneasiness, amounting sometimes to panic. But he remembered, too, moments, hours, perhaps whole days of complete apathy, which came upon him as a reaction from his previous terror, and might be compared with the abnormal insensibility sometimes seen in the dying. He seemed to be trying in that latter stage to escape from a full and clear understanding of his position. Certain essential facts, which required immediate consideration, were particularly irksome to him. How glad he would have been to be free from some cares, the neglect of which would have threatened him with complete, inevitable ruin. He was particularly worried about Svidrigaïlov. He might be said to be permanently thinking of Svidrigaïlov. From the time of Svidrigaïlov's two menacing and unmistakable words in Sonia's room at the moment of Katerina Ivanovna's death, the normal working of his mind seemed to break down. But although this new fact caused him extreme uneasiness, Raskolnikov was in no hurry for an explanation of it. At times, finding himself in a solitary and remote part of the town, in some wretched eating‐house, sitting alone lost in thought, hardly knowing how he had come there, he suddenly thought of Svidrigaïlov. He recognized suddenly, clearly and with dismay that he ought at once to come to an understanding with that man and to make what terms he could. Walking outside the city gates one day, he positively fancied that they had fixed a meeting there, that he was waiting for Svidrigaïlov. Another time he woke up before daybreak lying on the ground under some bushes, and could not at first understand how he had come there. But during the 2 or 3 days after Katerina Ivanovna's death, he had 2 or 3 times met Svidrigaïlov at Sonia's lodging, where he had gone aimlessly for a moment. They exchanged a few words and made no reference to the vital subject, as though they were tacitly agreed not to speak of it for a time. Katerina Ivanovna's body was still lying in the coffin. Svidrigaïlov was busy making arrangements for the funeral. Sonia, too, was very busy. At their last meeting, Svidrigaïlov informed Raskolnikov that he had made an arrangement, and a very satisfactory one, for Katerina Ivanovna's children; that he had, through certain connections, succeeded in getting hold of certain personages, by whose help the 3 orphans could be at once placed in very suitable institutions; that the money he had settled on them had been of great assistance, as it is much easier to place orphans with some property than destitute ones. He said something too about Sonia, and promised to come himself in a day or two to see Raskolnikov, mentioning that he would like to consult with him, that there were things they must talk over. This conversation took place in the passage on the stairs. Svidrigaïlov looked intently at Raskolnikov and suddenly, after a brief pause, dropping his voice, asked: "But how is it, Rodion Romanovitch? You don't seem yourself. You look and you listen, but you don't seem to understand. Cheer up, we'll talk things over. I am only sorry I've so much to do of my own business and other people's. Ah, Rodion Romanovitch," he added suddenly, "what all men need is fresh air more than anything." He moved to one side to make way for the priest and server, who were coming up the stairs. They had come for the requiem service. By Svidrigaïlov's orders it was sung twice a day punctually. Svidrigaïlov went his way. Raskolnikov stood still a moment, thought, and followed the priest into Sonia's room. He stood at the door. They began quietly, slowly and mournfully singing the service. From his childhood the thought of death and the presence of death had something oppressive and mysteriously awful, and it was long since he had heard the requiem service. And there was something else here as well, too awful and disturbing. He looked at the children. They were all kneeling by the coffin. Polenka was weeping. Behind them Sonia prayed, softly and, as it were, timidly weeping. "These last 2 days she hasn't said a word to me, she hasn't glanced at me," Raskolnikov thought suddenly. The sunlight was bright in the room. The incense rose in clouds. The priest read, "Give rest, O Lord." Raskolnikov stayed all through the service. As he blessed them and took his leave, the priest looked round strangely. After the service Raskolnikov went up to Sonia. She took both his hands and let her head sink on his shoulder. This slight friendly gesture bewildered Raskolnikov. It seemed strange to him that there was no trace of repugnance, no trace of disgust, no tremor in her hand. It was the furthest limit of self-abnegation, at least so he interpreted it. Sonia said nothing. Raskolnikov pressed her hand and went out. He felt very miserable. If it had been possible to escape to some solitude, he would have thought himself lucky, even if he had to spend his whole life there. But although he had almost always been by himself of late, he had never been able to feel alone. Sometimes he walked out of the town on to the high road, once he had even reached a little wood. But the lonelier the place was, the more he seemed to be aware of an uneasy presence near him. It did not frighten him, but greatly annoyed him, so that he made haste to return to the town, to mingle with the crowd, to enter restaurants and taverns, to walk in busy thoroughfares. There he felt easier and even more solitary. One day at dusk he sat for an hour listening to songs in a tavern, and he remembered that he positively enjoyed it. But at last he had suddenly felt the same uneasiness again, as though his conscience smote him. "Here I sit listening to singing. Is that what I ought to be doing?" he thought. Yet he felt at once that that was not the only cause of his uneasiness. There was something requiring immediate decision, but it was something he could not clearly understand or put into words. It was a hopeless tangle. No, better the struggle again, better Porfiry again, or Svidrigaïlov, better some challenge again, some attack. Yes, yes, he thought. He went out of the tavern and rushed away almost at a run. The thought of Dounia and his mother suddenly reduced him almost to a panic. That night he woke up before morning among some bushes in Krestovsky Island, trembling all over with fever. He walked home, and it was early morning when he arrived. After some hours' sleep the fever left him, but he woke up late, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He remembered that Katerina Ivanovna's funeral had been fixed for that day, and was glad that he was not present at it. Nastasya brought him some food; he ate and drank with appetite, almost with greediness. His head was fresher and he was calmer than he had been for the last 3 days. He even felt a passing wonder at his previous attacks of panic. The door opened and Razumihin came in. "Ah, he's eating! Then he's not ill," said Razumihin. He took a chair and sat down at the table opposite Raskolnikov. He was troubled and did not attempt to conceal it. He spoke with evident annoyance, but without hurry or raising his voice. He looked as though he had some special fixed determination. "Listen," he began resolutely. "As far as I am concerned, you may all go to hell, but from what I see it's clear to me that I can't make head or tail of it. Please don't think I've come to ask you questions. I don't want to know, hang it! If you begin telling me your secrets, I dare say I shouldn't stay to listen, I should go away cursing. I have only come to find out once for all whether it's a fact that you are mad. There is a conviction in the air that you are mad, or very nearly so. I admit I've been disposed to that opinion myself, judging from your stupid, repulsive and quite inexplicable actions, and from your recent behaviour to your mother and sister. Only a monster or a madman could treat them as you have, so you must be mad." "When did you see them last?" "Just now. Haven't you seen them since then? What have you been doing with yourself? Tell me, please. I've been to you 3 times already. Your mother has been seriously ill since yesterday. She had made up her mind to come to you. Avdotya Romanovna tried to prevent her. She wouldn't hear a word. 'If he is ill, if his mind is giving way, who can look after him like his mother?' she said. We all came here together. We couldn't let her come alone all the way. We kept begging her to be calm. We came in, you weren't here. She sat down and stayed 10 minutes, while we stood waiting in silence. She got up and said, 'If he's gone out, that is, if he is well, and has forgotten his mother, it's humiliating and unseemly for his mother to stand at his door begging for kindness.' She returned home and took to her bed. Now she is in a fever. 'I see,' she said, 'that he has time for his girl.' She means by your girl Sofya Semyonovna, your betrothed or your mistress, I don't know. I went at once to Sofya Semyonovna's, for I wanted to know what was going on. I looked round, I saw the coffin, the children crying, and Sofya Semyonovna trying them on mourning dresses. No sign of you. I apologised, came away, and reported to Avdotya Romanovna. So that's all nonsense, and you haven't got a girl. The most likely thing is that you are mad. But here you sit, guzzling boiled beef as though you'd not had a bite for 3 days. Though as far as that goes, madmen eat too, but though you have not said a word to me yet, you are not mad, that I'd swear. Above all, you are not mad. So you may go to hell, all of you, for there's some mystery, some secret about it, and I don't intend to worry my brains over your secrets. So I've simply come to swear at you," he finished, getting up, "to relieve my mind, and I know what to do now." "What do you mean to do now?" "What business is it of yours what I mean to do?" "You are going in for a drinking bout." "How... how did you know?" "Why, it's pretty plain." Razumihin paused for a minute. "You always have been a very rational person and you've never been mad, never," he observed suddenly with warmth. "You're right, I shall drink. Good bye." And he moved to go out. "I was talking with my sister the day before yesterday. I think it was about you, Razumihin." "About me? But where can you have seen her the day before yesterday?" Razumihin stopped short and even turned a little pale. One could see that his heart was throbbing slowly and violently. "She came here by herself, sat there and talked to me." "She did?" "Yes." "What did you say to her? I mean, about me?" "I told her you were a very good, honest and industrious man. I didn't tell her you love her, because she knows that herself." "She knows that herself?" "Well, it's pretty plain. Wherever I might go, whatever happened to me, you would remain to look after them. I, so to speak, give them into your keeping, Razumihin. I say this because I know quite well how you love her and am convinced of the purity of your heart. I know that she too may love you and perhaps does love you already. Now decide for yourself, as you know best, whether you need to go in for a drinking bout or not." "Rodya!" "Well, you see, well... ach, damn it! But where do you mean to go? Of course, if it's all a secret, never mind, but I shall find out the secret, and I am sure that it must be some ridiculous nonsense and that you've made it all up. Anyway, you are a capital fellow, a capital fellow." "That was just what I wanted to add, only you interrupted, that was a very good decision of yours not to find out these secrets. Leave it to time, don't worry about it. You'll know it all in time when it must be. Yesterday a man said to me that what a man needs is fresh air, fresh air, fresh air. I mean to go to him directly to find out what he meant by that." Razumihin stood lost in thought and excitement, making a silent conclusion. "He's a political conspirator. He must be. And he's on the eve of some desperate step, that's certain. It can only be that. And Dounia knows," he thought suddenly. "So Avdotya Romanovna comes to see you," he said, weighing each syllable, "and you're going to see a man who says we need more air, and so of course that letter, that too must have something to do with it," he concluded to himself. "What letter?" "She got a letter to day. It upset her very much indeed. Too much so. I began speaking of you, she begged me not to. Then she said that perhaps we should very soon have to part. Then she began warmly thanking me for something, then she went to her room and locked herself in." "She got a letter?" Raskolnikov asked thoughtfully. "Yes. And you didn't know? Hm." They were both silent. "Good bye, Rodion. There was a time, brother, when I... Never mind, good bye. You see, there was a time... Well, good bye. I must be off too. I am not going to drink. There's no need now. That's all stuff." He hurried out, but when he had almost closed the door behind him, he suddenly opened it again and said, looking away, "Oh, by the way, do you remember that murder? You know Porfiry's, that old woman? Do you know the murderer has been found? He has confessed and given the proofs. It's one of those very workmen, the painter, only fancy, do you remember I defended them here? Would you believe it, all that scene of fighting and laughing with his companions on the stairs, while the porter and the two witnesses were going up, he got up on purpose to disarm suspicion. The cunning, the presence of mind of the young dog! One can hardly credit it, but it's his own explanation, he has confessed it all. And what a fool I was about it! Well, he's simply a genius of hypocrisy and resourcefulness in disarming the suspicions of the lawyers, so there's nothing much to wonder at, I suppose. Of course people like that are always possible, and the fact that he couldn't keep up the character but confessed makes him easier to believe in. But what a fool I was! I was frantic on their side." "Tell me, please, from whom did you hear that, and why does it interest you so?" Raskolnikov asked with unmistakable agitation. "What next? You ask me why it interests me? Well, I heard it from Porfiry, among others. It was from him I heard almost all about it." "From Porfiry? From Porfiry?" "What? What did he say?" Raskolnikov asked in dismay. "He gave me a capital explanation of it. Psychologically, after his fashion." "He explained it? Explained it himself?" "Yes, yes, good bye, I'll tell you all about it another time, but now I'm busy. There was a time when I fancied... But no matter, another time. What need is there for me to drink now? You have made me drunk without wine. I am drunk, Rodya. Good bye, I'm going. I'll come again very soon." He went out. "He's a political conspirator, there's not a doubt about it," Razumihin decided as he slowly descended the stairs. "And he's drawn his sister in. That's quite in keeping with Avdotya Romanovna's character. There are interviews between them. She hinted at it too. So many of her words and hints bear that meaning. And how else can all this tangle be explained? Hm! And I was almost thinking... Good heavens, what I thought! Yes, I took leave of my senses and I wronged him. It was his doing, under the lamp in the corridor that day. Foo! What a crude, nasty, vile idea on my part! Nikolay is a brick for confessing. And how clear it all is now! His illness then, all his strange actions... before this, in the university, how morose he used to be, how gloomy. But what's the meaning now of that letter? There's something in that, too, perhaps. Whom was it from? I suspect... No, I must find out." He thought of Dounia, realising all he had heard, and his heart throbbed, and he suddenly broke into a run. As soon as Razumihin went out, Raskolnikov got up, turned to the window, walked into one corner and then into another, as though forgetting the smallness of his room, and sat down again on the sofa. He felt, so to speak, renewed. Again the struggle, so a means of escape had come. Yes, a means of escape had come. It had been too stifling, too cramping, the burden had been too agonising. A lethargy had come upon him at times. From the moment of the scene with Nikolay at Porfiry's he had been suffocating, penned in without hope of escape. After Nikolay's confession, on that very day had come the scene with Sonia. His behaviour and his last words had been utterly unlike anything he could have imagined beforehand. He had grown feebler instantly and fundamentally. And he had agreed at the time with Sonia. He had agreed in his heart he could not go on living alone with such a thing on his mind. And Svidrigaïlov was a riddle. He worried him, that was true, but somehow not on the same point. He might still have a struggle to come with Svidrigaïlov. Svidrigaïlov too might be a means of escape, but Porfiry was a different matter. and so Porfiry himself had explained it to Razumihin, had explained it psychologically. He had begun bringing in his damned psychology again. Porfiry? But to think that Porfiry should for one moment believe that Nikolay was guilty, after what had passed between them before Nikolay's appearance, after that tête-à-tête interview which could have only one explanation? During those days Raskolnikov had often recalled passages in that scene with Porfiry. He could not bear to let his mind rest on it. Such words, such gestures had passed between them, they had exchanged such glances, things had been said in such a tone and had reached such a pass, that Nikolay, whom Porfiry had seen through at first word, at the first gesture, could not have shaken his conviction. And to think that even Razumihin had begun to suspect! The scene in the corridor under the lamp had produced its effect then. He had rushed to Porfiry. But what had induced the latter to receive him like that? What had been his object in putting Razumihin off with Nikolay? He must have some plan, there was some design, but what was it? It was true that a long time had passed since that morning, too long a time, and no sight nor sound of Porfiry. Well, that was a bad sign. Raskolnikov took his cap and went out of the room, still pondering. It was the first time for a long while that he had felt clear in his mind, at least. "I must settle Svidrigaïlov," he thought, "and as soon as possible. He, too, seems to be waiting for me to come to him of my own accord." And at that moment there was such a rush of hate in his weary heart that he might have killed either of those two, Porfiry or Svidrigaïlov. At least he felt that he would be capable of doing it later, if not now. "We shall see, we shall see," he repeated to himself. But no sooner had he opened the door than he stumbled upon Porfiry himself in the passage. He was coming in to see him. Raskolnikov was dumbfounded for a minute, but only for 1 minute. Strange to say, he was not very much astonished at seeing Porfiry and scarcely afraid of him. He was simply startled, but was quickly, instantly on his guard. Perhaps this will mean the end. But how could Porfiry have approached so quietly like a cat, so that he had heard nothing? Could he have been listening at the door? "You didn't expect a visitor, Rodion Romanovitch," Porfiry explained, laughing. "I've been meaning to look in a long time. I was passing by and thought, why not go in for 5 minutes? Are you going out? I won't keep you long. Just let me have one cigarette." "Sit down, Porfiry Petrovitch, sit down." Raskolnikov gave his visitor a seat with so pleased and friendly an expression that he would have marvelled at himself if he could have seen it. The last moment had come, the last drops had to be drained. So a man will sometimes go through half an hour of mortal terror with a brigand, yet when the knife is at his throat at last, he feels no fear. Raskolnikov seated himself directly facing Porfiry and looked at him without flinching. Porfiry screwed up his eyes and began lighting a cigarette. "Speak, speak," seemed as though it would burst from Raskolnikov's heart. "Come, why don't you speak?" End of Part 6, Chapter 1. Recording by Expatriate in Bangor, Maine. Part 6, Chapter 2. Of Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Translated by Constance Garnett. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Expatriate in Bangor, Maine. Part 6, Chapter 2. "Ah, these cigarettes!" Porfiry Petrovitch ejaculated at last, having lighted one. "They are pernicious, positively pernicious, and yet I can't give them up. I cough, I begin to have tickling in my throat and a difficulty in breathing. You know I am a coward. I went lately to Dr. B. He always gives at least half an hour to each patient. He positively laughed, looking at me. He sounded me. 'Tobacco's bad for you,' he said. 'Your lungs are affected, but how am I to give it up? What is there to take its place? I don't drink. That's the mischief, that I don't. Everything is relative, Rodion Romanovitch, everything is relative.'" "Why, he's playing his professional tricks again," Raskolnikov thought with disgust. All the circumstances of their last interview suddenly came back to him, and he felt a rush of the feeling that had come upon him then. "I came to see you the day before yesterday, in the evening. You didn't know?" Porfiry Petrovitch went on, looking round the room. "I came into this very room. I was passing by, just as I did to day, and I thought I'd return your call. I walked in as your door was wide open, I looked round, waited and went out without leaving my name with your servant. Don't you lock your door?" Raskolnikov's face grew more and more gloomy. Porfiry seemed to guess his state of mind. "I've come to have it out with you, Rodion Romanovitch, my dear fellow. I owe you an explanation and must give it to you," he continued with a slight smile, just patting Raskolnikov's knee. But almost at the same instant a serious and careworn look came into his face. To his surprise, Raskolnikov saw a touch of sadness in it. He had never seen and never suspected such an expression in his face. "A strange scene passed between us last time we met, Rodion Romanovitch. Our first interview, too, was a strange one, but then... and one thing after another. This is the point. I have perhaps acted unfairly to you. I feel it. Do you remember how we parted? Your nerves were unhinged and your knees were shaking, and so were mine. And, you know, our behaviour was unseemly, even ungentlemanly. And yet we are gentlemen, after all, in any case gentlemen, that must be understood. Do you remember what we came to? And it was quite indecorous." "What is he up to? What does he take me for?" Raskolnikov asked himself in amazement, raising his head and looking with open eyes on Porfiry. "I've decided openness is better between us," Porfiry Petrovitch went on, turning his head away and dropping his eyes, as though unwilling to disconcert his former victim and as though disdaining his former wiles. "Yes, such suspicions and such scenes cannot continue for long. Nikolay put a stop to it, or I don't know what we might not have come to. That damned workman was sitting at the time in the next room. Can you realise that? You know that, of course, and I am aware that he came to you afterwards. But what you supposed then was not true. I had not sent for anyone. I had made no kind of arrangements. You ask why I hadn't? What shall I say to you? It had all come upon me so suddenly. I had scarcely sent for the porters you noticed them as you went out, I dare say an idea flashed upon me. I was firmly convinced at the time, you see, Rodion Romanovitch. 'Come,' I thought, 'even if I let one thing slip for a time, I shall get hold of something else. I shan't lose what I want, anyway.' You are nervously irritable, Rodion Romanovitch, by temperament. It's out of proportion with other qualities of your heart and character, which I flatter myself I have to some extent divined. Of course I did reflect even then that it does not always happen that a man gets up and blurts out his whole story. It does happen sometimes, if you make a man lose all patience, though even then it's rare. I was capable of realising that. If I only had a fact, I thought, the least little fact to go upon, something I could lay hold of, something tangible, not merely psychological. For if a man is guilty, you must be able to get something substantial out of him. One may reckon upon most surprising results indeed. I was reckoning on your temperament, Rodion Romanovitch, on your temperament above all things. I had great hopes of you at that time." "But what are you driving at now?" Raskolnikov muttered at last, asking the question without thinking. "What is he talking about?" he wondered distractedly. "Does he really take me to be innocent?" "What am I driving at? I've come to explain myself. I consider it my duty, so to speak. I want to make clear to you how the whole business, the whole misunderstanding arose. I've caused you a great deal of suffering, Rodion Romanovitch. I am not a monster. I understand what it must mean for a man who has been unfortunate, but who is proud, imperious and above all impatient, to have to bear such treatment. I regard you in any case as a man of noble character and not without elements of magnanimity, though I don't agree with all your convictions. I wanted to tell you this first, frankly and quite sincerely, for above all I don't want to deceive you. When I made your acquaintance, I felt attracted by you. Perhaps you will laugh at my saying so. You have a right to. I know you disliked me from the first, and indeed you've no reason to like me. You may think what you like, but I desire now to do all I can to efface that impression, and to show that I am a man of heart and conscience. I speak sincerely." Porfiry Petrovitch made a dignified pause. Raskolnikov felt a rush of renewed alarm. The thought that Porfiry believed him to be innocent began to make him uneasy. "It's scarcely necessary to go over everything in detail," Porfiry Petrovitch went on. "Indeed, I could scarcely attempt it. To begin with, there were rumours; through whom, how and when those rumours came to me, and how they affected you, I need not go into. My suspicions were aroused by a complete accident, which might just as easily not have happened. What was it? I believe there is no need to go into that either. Those rumours and that accident led to one idea in my mind. I admit it openly, for one may as well make a clean breast of it, I was the first to pitch on you. The old woman's notes on the pledges and the rest of it, that all came to nothing. Yours was one of 100. I happened, too, to hear of the scene at the office from a man who described it capitally, unconsciously reproducing the scene with great vividness. It was just one thing after another, Rodion Romanovitch, my dear fellow. How could I avoid being brought to certain ideas? From 100 rabbits you can't make a horse, 100 suspicions don't make a proof, as the English proverb says, but that's only from the rational point of view. You can't help being partial, for after all a lawyer is only human. I thought, too, of your article in that journal, do you remember? On our first visit we talked of it. I jeered at you at the time, but that was only to lead you on. I repeat, Rodion Romanovitch, you are ill and impatient. That you were bold, headstrong, in earnest, and had felt a great deal I recognised long before. I, too, have felt the same, so that your article seemed familiar to me. It was conceived on sleepless nights, with a throbbing heart, in ecstasy and suppressed enthusiasm. And that proud, suppressed enthusiasm in young people is dangerous. I jeered at you then, but let me tell you that as a literary amateur I am awfully fond of such first essays, full of the heat of youth. There is a mistiness and a chord vibrating in the mist. Your article is absurd and fantastic, but there's a transparent sincerity, a youthful incorruptible pride and the daring of despair in it. It's a gloomy article, but that's what's fine in it. I read your article and put it aside, thinking as I did so, that man won't go the common way. Well, I ask you, after that as a preliminary, how could I help being carried away by what followed? Oh dear, I am not saying anything, I am not making any statement now, I simply noted it at the time. What is there in it? I reflected. There's nothing in it, that is really nothing and perhaps absolutely nothing. And it's not at all the thing for the prosecutor to let himself be carried away by notions. Here I have Nikolay on my hands with actual evidence against him. You may think what you like of it, but it's evidence. He brings in his psychology too. One has to consider him too, for it's a matter of life and death. Why am I explaining this to you? That you may understand, and not blame my malicious behaviour on that occasion. It was not malicious, I assure you. Do you suppose I didn't come to search your room at the time? I did! I did! Ah, I was here when you were lying ill in bed, not officially, but in my own person, but I was here. Your room was searched to the last thread at the first suspicion. But umsonst, I thought to myself, now that man will come of himself, and quickly too, if he's guilty he's sure to come. Another man wouldn't, but he will. And you remember how Mr. Razumihin began discussing the subject with you. We arranged that to excite you. So we purposely spread rumours that he might discuss the case with you, and Razumihin is not a man to restrain his indignation. Mr. Zametov was tremendously struck by your anger and your open daring. Think of blurting out in a restaurant, 'I killed her!' It was too daring, too reckless. I thought so myself. If he is guilty, he will be a formidable opponent. That was what I thought at the time. I was expecting you. But you simply bowled Zametov over and, well, you see, it all lies in this, that this damnable psychology can be taken two ways. Well, I kept expecting you, and so it was. You came. My heart was fairly throbbing. Ah! Now, why need you have come? Your laughter too as you came in, do you remember? I saw it all plain as daylight, but if I hadn't expected you so specially, I should not have noticed anything in your laughter. You see what influence a mood has. Mr. Razumihin then, ah, that stone under which the things were hidden. I seemed to see it somewhere in a kitchen garden. It was in a kitchen garden, you told Zametov, and afterwards you repeated that in my office. And when we began picking your articles to pieces, how you explained it. One could take every word of yours in two senses, as though there were another meaning hidden. So in this way, Rodion Romanovitch, I reached the furthest limit, and knocking my head against a post, I pulled myself up, asking myself what I was about. After all, I said, you can take it all in another sense if you like, and it's more natural so, indeed. I couldn't help admitting it was more natural. I was bothered. No, I'd better get hold of some little fact, I said. So when I heard of the bell ringing, I held my breath and was all in a tremor. Here is my little fact, thought I, and I didn't think it over. I simply wouldn't. I would have given 1,000 roubles at that minute to have seen you with my own eyes when you walked 100 paces beside that workman after he had called you murderer to your face, and you did not dare to ask him a question all the way? And then what about your trembling? What about your bell ringing in your illness, in semi-delirium? And so, Rodion Romanovitch, can you wonder that I played such pranks on you? And what made you come at that very minute? Someone seemed to have sent you, by Jove! And if Nikolay had not parted us, and do you remember Nikolay at the time? Do you remember him clearly? It was a thunderbolt, a regular thunderbolt. And how I met him, I didn't believe in the thunderbolt not for a minute. You could see it for yourself, and how could I? Even afterwards, when you had gone and he began making very, very plausible answers on certain points, so that I was surprised at him myself, even then I didn't believe his story. You see what it is to be as firm as a rock? No, thought I, Morgen früh, what has Nikolay got to do with it? Razumihin told me just now that you think Nikolay guilty, and had yourself assured him of it." His voice failed him and he broke off. He had been listening in indescribable agitation, as this man who had seen through and through him went back upon himself. He was afraid of believing it and did not believe it. In those still ambiguous words he kept eagerly looking for something more definite and conclusive. "Mr. Razumihin?" cried Porfiry Petrovitch, seeming glad of a question from Raskolnikov, who had till then been silent. "Ha ha! But I had to put Mr. Razumihin off. Two is company, three is none. Mr. Razumihin is not the right man, besides he is an outsider. He came running to me with a pale face, but never mind him, why bring him in? To return to Nikolay. Would you like to know what sort of a type he is, how I understand him, that is? To begin with, he is still a child and not exactly a coward, but something by way of an artist. Really, don't laugh at my describing him so. He is innocent and responsive to influence. He has a heart and is a fantastic fellow. He sings and dances, he tells stories, they say, so that people come from other villages to hear him. He attends school too, and laughs till he cries if you hold up a finger to him. He will drink himself senseless, not as a regular vice, but at times when people treat him like a child. And he stole too then, without knowing it himself, for how can it be stealing if one picks it up? And do you know he is an old believer, or rather a dissenter? There have been wanderers in his family, and he was for 2 years in his village under the spiritual guidance of a certain elder. I learnt all this from Nikolay and from his fellow villagers, and what's more, he wanted to run into the wilderness. He was full of fervour, prayed at night, read the old books, the true ones, and read himself crazy. Petersburg had a great effect upon him, especially the women and the wine. He responds to everything and he forgot the elder and all that. I learnt that an artist here took a fancy to him and used to go and see him, and now this business came upon him. Well, he was frightened. He tried to hang himself, he ran away. How can one get over the idea the people have of Russian legal proceedings? The very word trial frightens some of them. Whose fault is it? We shall see what the new juries will do. God grant they do good. Well, in prison it seems, he remembered the venerable elder. The Bible, too, made its appearance again. Do you know, Rodion Romanovitch, the force of the word suffering among some of these people? It's not a question of suffering for someone's benefit, but simply one must suffer. If they suffer at the hands of the authorities, so much the better. In my time there was a very meek and mild prisoner who spent a whole year in prison, always reading his Bible on the stove at night, and he read himself crazy. And so crazy, do you know, that one day, apropos of nothing, he seized a brick and flung it at the governor, though he had done him no harm. And the way he threw it, too! Aimed it a yard on one side on purpose for fear of hurting him. Well, we know what happens to a prisoner who assaults an officer with a weapon. So he took his suffering. So I suspect now that Nikolay wants to take his suffering, or something of the sort. I know it for certain from facts, indeed. Only he doesn't know that I know. What? You don't admit that there are such fantastic people among the peasants? Lots of them. The elder now has begun influencing him, especially since he tried to hang himself. But he'll come and tell me all himself. You think he'll hold out? Wait a bit, he'll take his words back. I am waiting from hour to hour for him to come and abjure his evidence. I have come to like that Nikolay and am studying him in detail, and what do you think?
He answered me very plausibly on some points. He obviously had collected some evidence and prepared himself cleverly, but on other points he is simply at sea, knows nothing, and doesn't even suspect that he doesn't know. No, Rodion Romanovitch, Nikolay doesn't come in. This is a fantastic, gloomy business, a modern case, an incident of to‐day, when the heart of man is troubled, when the phrase is quoted that blood renews, when comfort is preached as the aim of life. Here we have bookish dreams, a heart unhinged by theories. Here we see resolution in the first stage, but resolution of a special kind. He resolved to do it like jumping over a precipice or from a bell tower, and his legs shook as he went to the crime. He forgot to shut the door after him, and murdered two people for a theory. He committed the murder and couldn't take the money, and what he did manage to snatch up, he hid under a stone. It wasn't enough for him to suffer agony behind the door while they battered at the door and rung the bell. No, he had to go to the empty lodging, half delirious, to recall the bell ringing. He wanted to feel the cold shiver over again. Well, that, we grant, was through illness, but consider this: he is a murderer, but looks upon himself as an honest man, despises others, poses as injured innocence. No, that's not the work of a Nikolay, my dear Rodion Romanovitch." All that had been said before had sounded so like a recantation that these words were too great a shock. Raskolnikov shuddered as though he had been stabbed. "Th- Then who then is the murderer?" he asked in a breathless voice, unable to restrain himself. Porfiry Petrovitch sank back in his chair as though he were amazed at the question. "Who is the murderer?" he repeated, as though unable to believe his ears. "Why, you, Rodion Romanovitch, you are the murderer," he added, almost in a whisper, in a voice of genuine conviction. Raskolnikov leapt from the sofa, stood up for a few seconds and sat down again without uttering a word. His face twitched convulsively. "Your lip is twitching just as it did before," Porfiry Petrovitch observed almost sympathetically. "You've been misunderstanding me, I think, Rodion Romanovitch," he added after a brief pause. "That's why you are so surprised. I came on purpose to tell you everything and deal openly with you." "It was not I murdered her," Raskolnikov whispered like a frightened child caught in the act. "No, it was you, you, Rodion Romanovitch, and no one else," Porfiry whispered sternly, with conviction. They were both silent. And the silence lasted strangely long, about 10 minutes. Raskolnikov put his elbow on the table and passed his fingers through his hair. Porfiry Petrovitch sat quietly waiting. Suddenly Raskolnikov looked scornfully at Porfiry. "You are at your old tricks again, Porfiry Petrovitch. Your old method again. I wonder you don't get sick of it." "Oh, stop that! What does that matter now? It would be a different matter if there were witnesses present, but we are whispering alone. You see yourself that I have not come to chase and capture you like a hare. Whether you confess it or not is nothing to me now. For myself I am convinced without it." "If so, what did you come for?" Raskolnikov asked irritably. "I ask you the same question again. If you consider me guilty, why don't you take me to prison?" "Oh, that's your question. I will answer you point for point. In the first place, to arrest you so directly is not to my interest." "How so? If you are convinced, you ought..." "Ah, what if I am convinced? That's only my dream for the time. Why should I put you in safety? You know that's it, since you ask me to do it. If I confront you with that workman, for instance, and you say to him, 'Were you drunk or not? Who saw me with you? I simply took you to be drunk, and you were drunk too.' Well, what could I answer, especially as your story is a more likely one than his? For there's nothing but psychology to support his evidence. That's almost unseemly with his ugly mug, while you hit the mark exactly, for the rascal is an inveterate drunkard, and notoriously so. And I have myself admitted candidly several times already that that psychology can be taken in two ways, and that the second way is stronger and looks far more probable, and that apart from that I have as yet nothing against you. And though I shall put you in prison, and indeed have come, quite contrary to etiquette, to inform you of it beforehand, yet I tell you frankly, also contrary to etiquette, that it won't be to my advantage. Well, secondly, I've come to you because... Yes, secondly," Raskolnikov was listening breathless, "because As I told you just now, I consider I owe you an explanation. I don't want you to look upon me as a monster, as I have a genuine liking for you, you may believe me or not. And in the third place, I've come to you with a direct and open proposition that you should surrender and confess. It will be infinitely more to your advantage and to my advantage too, for my task will be done. Well, is this open on my part or not?" Raskolnikov thought a minute. "Listen, Porfiry Petrovitch, you said just now you have nothing but psychology to go on, yet now you've gone on mathematics. Well, what if you are mistaken yourself now?" "No, Rodion Romanovitch, I am not mistaken. I have a little fact even then, Providence sent it me." "What little fact?" "I won't tell you what, Rodion Romanovitch, and in any case I haven't the right to put it off any longer. I must arrest you. So think it over. It makes no difference to me now, and so I speak only for your sake. Believe me, it will be better, Rodion Romanovitch." Raskolnikov smiled malignantly. "That's not simply ridiculous, it's positively shameless. Why, even if I were guilty, which I don't admit, what reason should I have to confess, when you tell me yourself that I shall be in greater safety in prison?" "Ah, Rodion Romanovitch, don't put too much faith in words. Perhaps prison will not be altogether a restful place. That's only theory and my theory, and what authority am I for you? Perhaps, too, even now I am hiding something from you. I can't lay bare everything. And how can you ask what advantage? Don't you know how it would lessen your sentence? You would be confessing at a moment when another man has taken the crime on himself and so has muddled the whole case. Consider that! I swear before God that I will so arrange that your confession shall come as a complete surprise. We will make a clean sweep of all these psychological points of a suspicion against you, so that your crime will appear to have been something like an aberration, for in truth it was an aberration. I am an honest man, Rodion Romanovitch, and will keep my word." Raskolnikov maintained a mournful silence and let his head sink dejectedly. He pondered a long while and at last smiled again, but his smile was sad and gentle. "No," he said, apparently abandoning all attempt to keep up appearances with Porfiry, "it's not worth it. I don't care about lessening the sentence." "That's just what I was afraid of," Porfiry cried warmly and, as it seemed, involuntarily. "That's just what I feared, that you wouldn't care about the mitigation of sentence." Raskolnikov looked sadly and expressively at him. "Ah, don't disdain life," Porfiry went on. "You have a great deal of it still before you. How can you say you don't want a mitigation of sentence? You are an impatient fellow." "A great deal of what lies before me?" "Of life. What sort of prophet are you? Do you know much about it? Seek and ye shall find. This may be God's means for bringing you to Him. And it's not for ever, the bondage." "The time will be shortened?" laughed Raskolnikov. "Why, is it the bourgeois disgrace you are afraid of? It may be that you are afraid of it without knowing it, because you are young, but anyway, you shouldn't be afraid of giving yourself up and confessing." "Ah, hang it!" Raskolnikov whispered with loathing and contempt, as though he did not want to speak aloud. He got up again as though he meant to go away, but sat down again in evident despair. "Hang it, if you like! You've lost faith and you think that I am grossly flattering you. But how long has your life been? How much do you understand? You made up a theory and then were ashamed that it broke down and turned out to be not at all original. It turned out something base, that's true, but you are not hopelessly base. By no means so base. At least you didn't deceive yourself for long, you went straight to the furthest point at one bound. How do I regard you? I regard you as one of those men who would stand and smile at their torturer while he cuts their entrails out, if only they have found faith or God. Find it and you will live. You have long needed a change of air. Suffering, too, is a good thing. Suffer! Maybe Nikolay is right in wanting to suffer. I know you don't believe in it, but don't be overwise. Fling yourself straight into life, without deliberation. Don't be afraid. The flood will bear you to the bank and set you safe on your feet again. What bank? How can I tell? I only believe that you have long life before you. I know that you take all my words now for a set speech prepared beforehand, but maybe you will remember them after. They may be of use some time, that's why I speak. It's as well that you only killed the old woman. If you'd invented another theory, you might perhaps have done something 1,000 times more hideous. You ought to thank God, perhaps. How do you know? Perhaps God is saving you for something. But keep a good heart and have less fear. Are you afraid of the great expiation before you? No! It would be shameful to be afraid of it. Since you have taken such a step, you must harden your heart. There is justice in it. You must fulfill the demands of justice. I know that you don't believe it, but indeed life will bring you through. You will live it down in time. What you need now is fresh air, fresh air, fresh air." Raskolnikov positively started. "But who are you? What prophet are you? From the height of what majestic calm do you proclaim these words of wisdom?" "Who am I? I am a man with nothing to hope for, that's all. A man perhaps of feeling and sympathy, maybe of some knowledge too, but my day is over. But you are a different matter, there is life waiting for you, though who knows, maybe your life too will pass off in smoke and come to nothing. Come, what does it matter that you will pass into another class of men? It's not comfort you regret with your heart. What of it that perhaps no one will see you for so long? It's not time, but yourself that will decide that. Be the sun and all will see you. The sun has before all to be the sun. Why are you smiling again at my being such a shiller? I bet you're imagining that I am trying to get round you by flattery. Well, perhaps I am. Perhaps you'd better not believe my word, perhaps you'd better never believe it altogether. I've made that way, I confess it. But let me add, you can judge for yourself, I think, how far I am a base sort of man and how far I am honest." "When do you mean to arrest me?" "Well, I can let you walk about another day or two. Think it over, my dear fellow, and pray to God. It's more in your interest, believe me." "And what if I run away?" asked Raskolnikov with a strange smile. "No, you won't run away. A peasant would run away, a fashionable dissenter would run away, the flunkey of another man's thought, for you've only to show him the end of your little finger and he'll be ready to believe in anything for the rest of his life. But you've ceased to believe in your theory already. What will you run away with? And what would you do in hiding? It would be hateful and difficult for you. And what you need more than anything in life is a definite position, an atmosphere to suit you. And what sort of atmosphere would you have? If you ran away, you'd come back to yourself. You can't get on without us. And if I put you in prison, say you've been there a month, or 2, or 3, remember my word, you'll confess of yourself and perhaps to your own surprise. You won't know an hour beforehand that you are coming with a confession. I am convinced that you will decide to take your suffering. You don't believe my words now, but you'll come to it of yourself, for suffering, Rodion Romanovitch, is a great thing. Never mind my having grown fat, I know all the same. Don't laugh at it, there's an idea in suffering. Nikolay is right. No, you won't run away, Rodion Romanovitch." Raskolnikov got up and took his cap. Porfiry Petrovitch also rose. "Are you going for a walk? The evening will be fine if only we don't have a storm. Though it would be a good thing to freshen the air." He too took his cap. "Porfiry Petrovitch, please don't take up the notion that I have confessed to you to day," Raskolnikov pronounced with sullen insistence. "You're a strange man, and I have listened to you from simple curiosity, but I have admitted nothing, remember that." "Oh, I know that. I'll remember. Look at him, he's trembling. Don't be uneasy, my dear fellow, have it your own way. Walk about a bit, you won't be able to walk too far. If anything happens, I have one request to make of you," he added, dropping his voice. "It's an awkward one, but important. If anything were to happen though indeed I don't believe in it and think you quite incapable of it yet in case you were taken during these 40 or 50 hours with the notion of putting an end to the business in some other way, in some fantastic fashion, laying hands on yourself, it's an absurd proposition, but you must forgive me for it. Do leave a brief but precise note, only 2 lines, and mention the stone, it will be more generous. Come, till we meet, good thoughts and sound decisions to you." Porfiry went out, stooping and avoiding looking at Raskolnikov. The latter went to the window and waited with irritable impatience till he calculated that Porfiry had reached the street and moved away. Then he, too, went hurriedly out of the room. End of Part 5, Chapter 2. Recording by Expatriate in Bangor, Maine.